Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? It is November the 23rd. We're back for another episode, another live stream Q&A. Just going to get Instagram set up here while some folks are joining us here. Let's get this going live. All right. We're going live. It's almost Thanksgiving week, or it is Thanksgiving week. It's almost Thanksgiving here in the United States. My hair is looking crazy today. Time for a haircut, I think. Man. But it's been quite a week. We had our third annual Jazz Trombone Day this last week at the University of North Texas. And we had some really, really great, what's up, DJ Kennedy? We had some great young trombonists on campus. We had our four finalists, Sam Rowley, Joe Giordano, Jack Courtwright, and DJ Rice. What's up? Pinto Piano, Caldera Jazz, John. What's up? Demetrius asking great questions in our masterclass. Today we have the Trombone Palooza continues at UNT. We have on campus Ben Patterson, formerly of the Airmen of Note, playing a concert tonight. So the trombone madness continues. If you're around, what's up, Leon? If you're around North Texas, what's up, Anthony? Thanks for stopping by to say hello. If you want to hang out, we're going to be hearing some great trombone playing tonight, that's for sure. But if you haven't checked it out yet, we do have. I got that new record came out a couple weeks ago. A few weeks ago, Out of Focus it's called, and it's out now, new for November 2021, and I'm excited to keep sharing some of that music. We play some of that on Saturday. Anthony is asking about Saturday's event, the Jazz Trombone Day. He said it felt very long. Well, it was a little bit long. I think, if you're sitting in front of your computer all day, anything feels a little bit long, most likely. So in person, I think it felt a little bit, it felt a little less long probably, as we're in person and hanging out and doing things in between all the sessions. And it was really great. And I thought it went pretty well. I didn't anticipate so the first year it was only in person and I was running the event, and then the second year I was running all the live stream, and so I could personally kind of oversee the whole live stream and make sure it was working properly. And then this year I had to combine both of those things together and run the live stream and the event in person, and I realized that was a little too much. That kind of put me slightly over the edge of staying sane and managing everything. So I know that I'm going to need help next year keeping track of the stream and running the live event. So I did realize that. I reached my limit, that's for sure. What's up, Velta? What's up, Cristiano? Ben's mouthpiece Aaron Chandler uses. Oh, okay. I'm not sure what mouthpiece he's playing on. Hey, Kevin. Hope you're doing well, man. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed that. We played Pat Metheny's Bright Sized Life. We played on Saturday. And that's also on that new record, the new Out of Focus record. Uh-oh, Taylor Hatch is coming for me. That's cool. Well, the grad students, DJ, they were working. They were also working. Don't get me wrong. They were providing rides, getting people to and from campus, going to the airport, running all sorts of things. But I thought I could do it. I thought I could handle it all by myself. But I was. It worked out sort of. But there was a few moments where people were getting frustrated with the audio on the stream. So room for improvement, and we will improve it, and that's just what's going to happen. It's always good to have clear goals of things to add for the next year, and that's going to be that. And we're going to add some other elements to it, I think. But it was kind of like, it felt like almost doing the first one all over again, um, because it was like we did the first one and it was great, and then we did the second one and it was all virtual, so it totally changed. And then this one back doing both things at once, it kind of felt like doing the first one for the first time all over again, because that very first year was like we used me as the guest artist because it was near to when I started teaching at UNT, and it didn't make sense. We didn't have the budget to bring somebody in that first year. So at any rate, it felt like a brand new thing. So I'm excited to keep it moving into the future, and that'll be cool. The other thing is, obviously, it's Thanksgiving week here, and that usually means, in the United States at least, that we have lots of the kickoff to the holiday season, and so lots of sales and things like that. And I decided to start mine early. So if you have been meaning to get any of my books, all the ebooks are 50% off from now until Monday, Cyber Monday, whatever. So if that's you, I sent emails out. There's a special code, 50 off. If you're not on my email list, you missed out. So you can use the code. I just gave it to you. 50. It's a 50 Friday, 50 Friday, and that's 50% off all the ebooks, if you're interested. Well, it sounds like my iPad is screwing up again. I don't know how to get it on and off. Is it back on? Maybe, maybe not. If it's not, I'll have to turn it off and turn it back on. Must not be live. All right. We're going to have to turn it off, turn it back on. The joys of Instagram. Delete video. Yes. Discard. All right, let's try that again. Oh, Taylor moved over to YouTube, so there we go. Sometimes this iPad, just like the audio jumps off. It was happening a couple weeks ago, and then it stopped, and then it started happening again. I don't know why, but I don't think there was any questions that I missed there. But anyway, all right, I see some questions rolling in, and this is our Q&A, weekly Q&A after all, so let's get to those questions. Sorry if you were here and there was no audio, and now hopefully it's back. But we're going to jump into our Q&A. Oh, some robot wants to know if I want to become famous by followers and viewers on Big Follows. Yeah, no, thank you. John, thanks for watching, man. Enjoyed being able to share all of that music. So now John's on Instagram too. Now you're on both sides. You'll probably notice that one is lagged further behind the other. NVK, what's up? France. DJ's back. All right, so feel free to drop in those questions if you have any that you want to talk about. Otherwise, I'll just talk about my ebooks on sale or something like that, which I already said, so I'm done with that. Okay, here's a question from Brian. Do you listen to any pop music? Only if I have to learn it for a gig, to be honest. Or if I'm listening to something as with my record label owner hat on and trying to see what's happening with all different kinds of music. But generally, I don't know, I just stick with the music that I like, which is jazz stuff usually. And but yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it's not that I don't like different kinds of music. It just doesn't enter my awareness of what I want to listen to. So what I was listening to most recently, I was checking out this morning, revisiting Slide Hampton's World of Trombones. Obviously, Slide passed last week. It turns out he passed, I think, on the 18th or the 19th, but I found out about it on Saturday during the Jazz Trombone Day event. And we were actually playing one of his tunes. There's a record called Two Bones, and we played Fuss Budget from that. This also has Curtis Fuller on it. And so we did that. We played that, and I was just thinking about Slide and how it's great arranging skills, not only for big band but for trombone ensemble. And DJ's asking about the choir, the jazz trombone choir. It's good. Last year they won the Kai Winding, we're going to be at ITF this summer. Got all that funding squared away, so that's happening. I'm excited that we'll get to bring the students to ITF. That'll be fun. So maybe you're there. And I think one of my students is going to come see you soon, DJ Luke. He needs a 3B bell or a 2B bell, something like that. All right, I see a question over here from Taylor. He asks, I can't even see the whole question. Let's see. When it comes to musical mastery, there are cerebral components and whimsical components. When it comes to expression, how do you balance the two when you're writing music? The cerebral and the whimsical. Wow. How do I balance them when I'm writing music? Okay. Man, he was going in on Ben earlier today. Now it's my turn, I guess. That is a really good question, though. How do I balance the whimsical and the technical? I try not to let my music get. I try not to let the music get too technical. You know, Steve Teray, when I used to study with Steve, he used to talk about, like, he would just say, "This sounds like a computer," you know, like when something was too like mathematical or too like lacking emotion, you know, or he would say, "It's all this and none of this," you know, certain little phrases of his still like ring in my ear about making sure that there's some of this heart, you know, in the music, and it's not just all math or all theory or something like that. So I try to write things that I think are slick, in that meaning that if you weren't listening for them, you wouldn't know they were happening in terms of like any like musical tricks or anything like that. Well, good. I'm glad to know this Facebook Live clip is crisp, Luke. Hey, and Luke, I was just talking to DJ on Instagram, DJ Kennedy. He says he's got lots of 2B bell for you, so go see him. So, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Taylor's question. And make sure that there's some sort of feeling to the music. And so if it gets too mathematical, I just hear Steve Teray in my head saying, "That's not music, that's math. Sounds like a computer." But I usually am composing from the stance of like, okay, I need a piece that does this or feels like this or has these events in it, so that it's like something more than just like fast or slow. It's like this needs to feel like this, or this needs to fill this role, a sensitive role or an angry role, or you know, something like that. So I try to think about that. I don't know. I hope that answers the question, but that's the voice in my head that keeps me from writing too much math music. Here's one question from Arthur. How to master halftone, whole tone scale? What is a good way to practice it? Oh, are you talking about the diminished scale? Best way I found to practice that is to break it into its component parts. So that's like, and so you need to get both parts of the scale like so good under your slide. So and then put it all together. So I'm trying to play a little bit quiet so I don't overload the microphone too much, but you get that muscle memory. Any scale that you need to be able to play at any moment, like the diminished scale or the half whole scale, you need to practice it till it's so natural that you can't play it wrong. So when I'm trying to practice that kind of thing, that might be while I'm doing something else. Like I'm trying to get the muscle memory while I'm like, I don't know, watching a football game or whatever, you know, getting muscle memory practice in. And I'll literally just sit there and practice shapes or scales or whatever, and until I can't play them wrong, you know. So over and over and over. It's really exciting. What's up, Tyler? David, thanks for joining. Hey, Aditya's here. How are you, man? All right, I see some other questions. I'm gonna go. There's one from DA. There's a Rochester question. The best place to get garbage plates? Oh, deep question there. No. Where do I go now? I used to always go to either Mark's Texas Hots in oh no, Arthur with the instrument, playing muscle memory with the instrument. I was just demonstrating, but you got to get the muscle memory ingrained so much while you're playing. Just play, 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 play while I'm doing something else, so that it gets into the back of your brain rather than having to think about it too much, so that it's natural. And then when you say, I need to access that scale, your brain goes, yep, digga, 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 digga. All right, back to the garbage plate question. This is a very important question. No, but there used to be a diner right around the corner from my apartment there that we used to go to called Gissy's, but that place got closed because somebody got shot there. So, yay Rochester. But Mark's was good. A lot of people like Dogtown. There's a place called Dogtown Hots in Rochester, but there's plenty of places. You know what's a good one is Jay's Diner. Jay's Diner. I'll let you go and check that one out. All right, off of the garbage plate question here. All right, I'll get to this Connor's question here in just a second. There's a bunch over here on YouTube. Okay, hang on. Let's see. Okay, so this is referencing Saturday's masterclass with Ido Meshulam. He's a great trombone player out in LA, if you don't know him. He said, do you agree with Ido when he said you should especially listen to people you don't like so you know what not to sound like? You know, I mean, I think there was a little tongue-in-cheek to that comment, but there's a lot to listening to people or music or reading things by people you don't agree with or like the way they play or like their music. And I think he was being tongue-in-cheek when he said, like, to learn what not to do. But it also helps you to identify what you want to do. I want to sound like that because X, Y, Z, you know. It's not just what you don't want to do. It's what you want to do as well. So, I mean, he's right that, you know, you have to listen to a lot of things. And I think he's just saying that you should challenge what you listen to. Because if you only listen to the same things over and over and over again, then you're not ever getting any new input, any new information, challenging your assumptions. I think that that's kind of like the realm of thought that he was kind of going towards there in terms of what he meant by that answer. I mean, he's being a little silly about saying listen to something you don't like to find out what not to sound like. But there's a certain truth to it, you know? But he means for you, you know? He wants him and I are like a year apart, but we play a lot differently. We grew up in different places, went to different schools, and like it's really interesting. I think it's interesting how the things that you select as your biggest influences, they add up to be a different product, you know, a different musical product. So I do agree with him. What are classic Duke Ellington albums we should all have in our music collections? I think there's like too many of the old ones that are just like individual, like they were not LPs, but the small ones. The word is escaping me. But so they were really short. So now it's like a bunch of compilations. So there's like the complete Ellington Blanton years. There's the Live at Newport. I like all the suites. So that's like the Queen's Suite, the New Orleans Suite, the Far East Suite, the Nutcracker Suite, if you're into the holiday stuff. The Such Sweet Thunder Suite. There's a great record of all Billy Strayhorn things called And His Mother Called Him Bill. That's a great record. So like the records are kind of like later in the discography because all that older stuff was maybe a little bit more like just a couple tracks at a time rather than albums that we think of now. I'm going to get to this question from Connor. I'm going to keep bouncing back and forth, so do drop in those questions. From Connor, he says, in your opinion, what are Slide's top 5 albums? So we're talking about Slide Hampton passing last week. I don't know about top 5 albums, but I'll mention a few albums of his that I really like. Do I have it? There's this Japanese import where he's playing the pictures of him in Riverside Park in New York. And what is it called? Is it just Slide Hampton Quartet or something? But it's all Japanese. It's all in Japanese. I like that one. It's got Last Minute Blues, also known as Chop Suey, on it, and it's with a European rhythm section. There's Melody, which is a great live recording. There's, of course, Day in Copenhagen with Dexter Gordon is one of his best outings, I think. He's got one called Explosion. I like a record of his called Exodus. And of course the two World of Trombones records. The first one is just called World of Trombones, and then the second one is called, what is the second one called? I think it's also called World of Trombone. But one is got Slide on the cover, that's the older one, and the other one has Bill Watrous on it, and it's got like a red and green and black cover. So there's those two, and then of course all this great big band writing. So I don't know about top 5, but there's a bunch of Slide that I would send you to. He's got some Nonette records that are really good too. Here's a question from Brian. Did you ever feel like being a double-tonger in jazz improvisation was sometimes an uphill battle? No, never thought that. I don't really care about what technique it is, what technique anybody does, you know. As long as it sounds good, it's cool. And my teacher, Steve Trey, was the same thing, you know. He's not a doodle-tonger, and I can't doodle-tongue, so no, I don't think it's an uphill battle. I'm not sure what Cornbread was. I'm not sure what that was about. 78s, there we go. 45s. Explosion. Yeah, Explosion's great. Slide. Some great YouTube videos of Slide too. Playing Night in Tunisia, some other stuff, some live stuff. Super killing. Trying to think. Other records. Exodus was one that I listened to a lot when I discovered that. That's where that confirmation solo comes from. But I think that and then The Day in Copenhagen, put those two together, man, and it's like, it's a lot. What's up, Jonah? I saw Ito this weekend. He said, "What's up?" to me from you. I hope you're doing well, man. I heard what's been going on, so hope you feel better soon. All right, from Bob Cosmic. Have you ever listened to the Jamaican trombonist called Don Drummond? He is known for ska music, but jazz was also his bag. No, I'm not super familiar with him. I'll have to check it out. Okay. Got some more questions. All right, not to mention about Jazz Trombone Day. Wycliffe Gordon was on Emmett's stream yesterday on YouTube. It sounded amazing. Oh, nice. I did see that. I didn't watch it yet, but I haven't seen Wycliffe in a long time, so I gotta hopefully make a point of getting to actually see him soon. Yeah, I'll have to watch that. Thanks for letting me know. I did see it kind of out of the corner of my scrolling. Do you believe that every set list you make for a performance has a secret storyline to your music? Titles in an order sounds to me like you're crafting a storyline. I don't know if I do that necessarily. I think with a set list for a live gig, it's different than on a record. I think about telling a story more with a record because you have more time for that to play out. In a live show, you're also telling a story, but I think it's a different story that you're telling. But, I mean, that's not necessarily the case. I mean, when I play with Anat Cohen, we tend to play the music almost in the similar order to the records to tell that story again. So it's not that you can't do it, but I wouldn't say that the titles necessarily reflect the story always. So no, is the short answer to your question. But I think when you are programming a live set, there's like the quote unquote like normal way to do it where you're gonna, like the collegiate way or the academic way, which is like, oh, fast tune, medium tune, ballad, you know, straight eighth, something, whatever, you know, which is pretty formulaic, and I don't find it to be super useful when I'm planning a set because I don't write my music that way necessarily. So I've been thinking a lot more about like, how does the song engage the audience or challenge the audience? Are they ready to be engaged or challenged? Do they need a break? Like, how does the programming of the musical events really? So I find that like grabbing their attention is important at the beginning, but not beating them over the head in such a way that it turns them off, you know? And then I think like playing something that's familiar. So like recently, like I try to put for example, Maria, the tune I play from West Side Story. I put that into like the first 3 songs usually, and then maybe a ballad, or maybe I put Maria second, and then I do a ballad, maybe an Ellington thing, to draw people in a way where it's like, oh, this guy's going to play music I know or that I'm familiar with, and then I can take them on the journey through my music as well after connecting them. But that's not for everybody. That's just like, I have such a strong passion for that Ellington and connecting to the tradition and the trombone tradition and bebop and JJ and whatever, that it's like I want to take them on that journey, you know. So I try to. And then I find when I drift away from that and focus more on originals, I can feel the audience sometimes drifting, you know. So I'm trying to find a way to be able to do both, you know. Luke wants to know my favorite tune right now. What is my favorite tune right now? This morning I was listening to Slide's Ride. I don't know. That was cool. My favorite tune right now. I've been still trying to shed Bud Powell by Chick Corea. I keep learning it and forgetting it. It's one of my curses. If I don't keep playing a tune, I forget it. So I need to get back to that tune. So thank you for reminding me. All right, I'm just scrolling back. I see some questions from YouTube here. Or Facebook. So Benjamin on Facebook. What's that, Benjamin? Ben. What's your opinion on having a good sound versus having a good personal sound? Obviously, certain things have different requirements as far as that goes, but I'd be interested to know what you think about the idea of that at least. Yeah, I think that a good sound is a good sound, and you have to have a good sound, period, end of story. I think that that means a lot of things. You know, I think that there's like certain characteristics. Like let's just say Slide and Curtis, right? Because I'm talking about those two. Versus Slide, Curtis, and JJ. All different sounds, all good sounds in different ways, right? Like Slide could tend to be a little more aggressive with his sound. JJ obviously super refined, super clear. And then Curtis was a little bit more fuzzy or a little bit more warm, a little bit more like a hug. I like to think about it. It feels like this, you know. So the important things to me in a good sound, there are characteristics of a good sound, which is that it has a lot of resonance. And so having resonance can have a lot of different sonic qualities, but that core is still there. The core of the resonance is still there no matter what. So you got to have a good sound, 100%. But what that means, having a good sound, this is something we talk about within the first couple weeks of students coming to UNT and taking my class, my fundamentals class. What is a good sound? What makes a good sound? I do workshops about this when I go out to schools. What is a good sound? Why is that the case? How do we make a good sound? And then what makes them personal? You know, and I'd like to say like Alessi, Wycliffe Gordon, Curtis Fuller, all great sounds. They don't sound anything alike, really, other than they play trombone. So, yes, play with a good sound, please, Ben. But it's not that means the same thing to all people. You know, it's different versus situationally, case to case. But the resonance is the main thing. Delphio Marcellus and Steve Dre was at a seminar in Jamaica a few years ago about Don Drummond's music. Don was really into Frank Rosalino. Oh, okay, cool. I'll have to check him out. I'm not super familiar. There's a question from Trevor. What is your approach to teaching / introducing jazz music to people who have had little exposure to it? My community is struggling immensely, and I'm trying to teach this music as much as possible. That's a good question. How do I approach them? So there's something that Joe Lovano said in a masterclass while I was at Juilliard, and I try to take that to heart in that jazz is not a what, but a how. And so what does that mean to me? So when you think about it as a how, it's a spirit of improvisation. It's a spirit of bringing your own vibe to a piece of music. It's the spirit of exploration. It's the spirit of swing in many cases, not all cases. It's a search. It's like a self-reflective search and creative process. All of those things. So to me, any song can be approached with that aesthetic or with that idea or with that approach. So what I would do is try to connect people with something that they know, but that is presented with a jazz aesthetic or with that spirit of the how. You're going to use it to explore creativity, to explore expression. So for a while when I was in college, that meant having like a funk and fusion band, and we would play that kind of stuff. Now I'm not doing that so much. I'm doing more whatever, straight ahead something, but finding a way to connect with people is important. I record all original music most of the time, but when I go to play gigs, I play tunes, you know. I don't only play my music because I'm trying to bring people on a journey, like Taylor was asking about. I'm trying to get people onto my team so that I can show them my original music and they don't just run away, you know. They're not overwhelmed by it. So, you know, other things to do is to keep the solo short. Don't improvise forever and ever. People's attention spans are pretty short. And I think there's a certain amount of it where it just needs to be in the air. And what does that mean? I mean, like, you need to hear it kind of in the background. You need to hear jazz, you know, you need to hear swing, you need to hear acoustic music. Something that I noticed recently is that even on like Spotify's State of Jazz playlist, which is like one of the biggest playlists for jazz music, most of it is not acoustic music. Most of it is a lot of electronics, sound processing, effects, etc., 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 which is cool. I think it's cool, but like that makes an acoustic record sound super weird. You know, like it sounds super out of place. So using anything you can to make it sonically more relatable can be important. So that might mean incorporating keyboards or synthesizers or electric bass, you know. So anyway, hopefully that helps. Bob Cosmic, please hit the like button. Sure, yeah, go for it. Curtis has the dirt in his swing. Yes, indeed. Curtis is the man. All right, thank you for those questions. Those are a couple really kind of deep questions. Hope I answered them somewhat well. Here's something on Instagram here. Discovery and knowing that jazz can exist in all types of music based on our personal likings for musical concepts. Yeah, that's another way of saying what I was trying to say. Yeah. So it's a spirit of expression and creativity that manifests itself through these tunes that we use as the jazz canon, but it can be applied to anything. It's a spirit of exploration. I like to think about creativity. What if, you know? What else? What could I do with this? What else could I do with it? What's next? Etc. All right, see some questions over here. From Arthur, what is your current upper register limit that you feel comfortable to play? Comfortable to play like right off the bat, like I'm going to pick up my horn and play it for you right now, or use in a song, or use in an improvisation? I don't know. I would say a high F. I play a F sharp sometimes in this single petal of a rose arrangement that I do, but I would say that's probably the highest note that I would expect myself to be able to play regularly, like a high F sharp. Okay. Oh, this is too long. Let's see. Okay. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this quote by Stephen Pressfield. The sign of the amateur is over-glorification of and preoccupation with the mystery. The professionals shut up. She doesn't talk about it. She does her work. Thoughts? Yes. Yes. That's 100% what it is. I talk about it as like being obsessed. And like being obsessed with the process, be obsessed with making small achievements day to day, rather than, yeah. I mean that's a good way of saying like, you know, you get obsessed with the results. You get obsessed with I need this gig. I need this affirmation. I need this this or that. You know. But no, it's just like you just commit yourself to the process. You show up every day, and eventually you get to the goal. It could take a year. It could take 10 years. Yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, I agree with the quote. I mean, I agree with the quote, and that's why amateurs are obsessed with gear. You know, like you're obsessed because you think that is a thing that's like, oh, the professionals have the right gear so they can do it. That's one manifestation of that kind of idea. It's not only that, but I especially see it like in, recording, or like in pop music, or like guys that buy a bunch of gear because they think it's going to like make them more professional. Right? It has nothing to do with that. Being a professional means that, and I see he says there's a difference between being amateur and professional. Yeah, of course there's a difference. The simple definition is like, being a professional means you're going to show up and take care of business, whatever it might be that gets thrown at you, and all that sort of thing. Says the professional doesn't take success or failure personally. Yeah, the professional shows up and does the job that's asked of them. They're what they were hired for, their skill set, and yeah, like this is me. This is what I have to offer, and then you take it or leave it. What's the most challenging piece that you wrote when you were in session? The hardest tune that I've written is probably called The Chase, and it's off the record, The Chase. The lines I wrote were kind of awkward. It changes time signature. Probably that one. That one's pretty hard. And I guess it's hard on saxophone too. So says Lucas Pino. Have you ever met someone you greatly disliked until you heard them play? What can I say about this? I disconnect someone's playing from their personality. So there's plenty of people that play great that I would not want to hang out with. The playing and the personality are not the same. There's plenty of people I'd rather hang out with that don't play, maybe quote unquote as good, So no one's playing has ever made me like them. I can say that. I've never heard anyone that plays so good that I'm like, oh, I'm going to like that person now, or I'm going to hire that person now, only because they play really well. Like, I don't want to deal with that. I'm not going to deal with jerks. Just leave it at that. There's another question from Connor here. Oh, I gotta do it like this. I got to think of an album concept for honors year at jazz school and then spend the year writing charts for that album. What is the process like for you when thinking of an album concept? Yeah, so when I'm thinking of an album concept, well, first of all, I don't settle on just one concept at first. I try to think of a lot of concepts, and then I try to think about them all from different angles, like there's not just one angle to a project. Different types of projects will connect to different type of people, meaning like if you are trying to reach a specific demographic, so I kind of break it up into like, I can even use my own projects as an example. So like the last record, Cast of Characters from 2019 or 2020, was for me. It was music I wrote because I wanted to write it, and I wanted it to be focused on a concept and focused on the music, and it was music for music's sake, more or less. So when I thought about that, I brainstormed about a lot of different possible concepts, and then I was like, oh, I think I want to do this. I want to focus on this, like talking about archetypes of people that come through people's life. And then from there, I even brainstormed lots and lots of different possible people or possible archetypes or possible ways of expressing that. So I did that. But that is in stark contrast to, for example, an album, Here and Now from 2017. Yeah, 2017, 2018. I forget when it came out. But that one was more about being in the present moment, and that music was written, in 2016 during all the political chaos, and I think it reflects that. And then the record, so 2018, No Arrival came out, and that one was all tunes, mostly all tunes, because that one was geared towards, I want to really connect with, the radio part of the jazz industry, and create songs that are a little shorter and more radio friendly, um, and stuff like that. So you can kind of target different parts of the industry. And then, if it's your first record, like maybe that means you want to display all the different things you can do, or maybe it means you want to come out with a strong conceptual statement because that's how people are going to get to know you and your music. And it's important to remember, no matter what you're coming up with for your concept of that record, is that it's got to be multiple records and multiple concepts. And so the more concepts you can think about and the more ways you can connect with the audience over time is going to be beneficial to growing your career. So I think about that, and then once I've got the concept, then I start to think about what the different emotions or feelings are that need to go into it, or what maybe there's components of that concept that need to be expressed in music. So I try not to define it by a number, or it needs to be this many, but generally an album needs like 40 minutes worth of music. So you can split that up however you want. It needs to have contrast. It needs to take them on a journey. Or it can just be a collection of songs that are just randomly thrown together. And it expresses whatever you're thinking about in that moment. And I think both of those are valid. I think they're both certainly valid. And there's a lot of ways you can come up with a concept. And sometimes you go with a marketing approach first. Like there's a timely event and you want to do a tribute, or, being like there are a lot of people making more politically oriented albums, from 17, 18, 19, and now people are making more like pandemic related albums, and like there's all these kind of things that have to do with whatever's happening now. So this is John following up on the disliked question. I meant that their playing may express some sort of humanity or even tenderness that you don't see in their actions. Oh, that's interesting. I wasn't thinking about it that way, but no, I would say that I haven't. I haven't had that experience of, oh, that person must be much more sensitive than they put off. Maybe I have. I don't know. That's a good question. Actually, I'm thinking to myself if that's. All right, here's another question. In jazz education, we are always taught that melodicism and minimalistic ideas will make a great use of storytelling in improvisation and composition. How do you practice minimalism when you're trying to get your narrative across? Okay, we are always taught that melodicism and minimalistic ideas will make a great use of storytelling, improvisation, and composition. How do you practice minimalism when you're trying to get a narrative across? Well, I think of it like this. Like one of my arranging teachers always taught us that Andy Farber, great arranger in New York, he writes a lot of just kind of straight ahead big band music and is amazing at this, but he also does film scores and all kinds of other things. And he talks about, and I took this 100% away from working with him, was that like anything that you introduce in a piece or in an improvisation is like a character. So, and if you get too many characters in your story too fast, regardless of style, if there's too many characters, it becomes unclear. Like if you think about a movie or a book, if there's too many characters thrown in all at once at the beginning, you don't relate to any of them. You don't get the story or the meaning behind what they're talking about. So I try to limit the amount of characters that I introduce into a piece or a song. So sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I want to stack all these things. And it's like, well, now there's 5 characters in 16 bars of music. We can't absorb that many characters that fast as a listener and appreciator of the music. So I try to think about it that way. So limit the amount of characters that get introduced at a given time, And so that might mean different things in different musical situations, but I think that plays into the idea of minimalism because you're trying to make the most out of the least amount of information. And I think doing that compositionally is something that really helps your improvising. Your musical personality is both of those things together. So if you're not developing your compositional side as well as your improvisational side, you're kind of missing out. Because composing in the jazz area, any area, is like, because we focus so much on improvisation and in the moment, that's just like out of the moment. You know what I'm saying? Like it's it's not in time creativity, it's out of time creativity, and you're developing, what do I actually hear? You know, when I hear these two notes, where do they want to go? And that's what I think about. It's the counterpoint between the two notes, and where does my ear want to hear this counterpoint going? Is it together? Is it separate? Is it converging? You know, all of those things. And I wouldn't get there if I didn't practice composition. And then when I'm blowing or improvising, those choices start to manifest themselves. So it could start as simple as a tritone substitution, or starting to hear the sharp 11 on a major chord. Very simple ideas that we teach in jazz education, but if you don't actively engage with those ideas, they're never going to come out quite right in your playing, you know? So I guess that's how they're related, and that's how it's related to minimalism, I guess. I don't know if that's a good answer to that question, but it was a hard question. Dat Trombone 1. Whoops, let's see if we can get it. What do you think about and listen for when you're rehearsing a jazz band? For some reason, I can't get your question to show up here. Hang on a second. Oh, it's a good question. Let's see if I can get to it here. There it goes. All right, what do you think about and listen for when you're rehearsing a jazz band? So, I mean, I think it depends what level they're at. But the most general answer that I can give you, especially if we're talking about, you know, a younger band, even a college band, it doesn't matter. I know this is going to sound overly simplified and like generic, but do they know what jazz sounds like? Do they know how it's supposed to feel? How can I help them discover what it's supposed to feel like? That's my job, I feel like, in a clinic or something, when I'm coming in and like I have only one thing to impart upon them. What do the eighth notes feel like? What do the accents feel like? And get them turned on to that. Because if they have that information, they can take it and run with it, you know. The accuracy of notes and rhythms and pitches and blah, blah, blah. Are you crescendoing and cutting off together? All of that to me is secondary to the execution of the feeling of the music. And because if it's not there, there's no way it's ever going to swing. And if you have no concept, if you think boo da doo da doo da doo da doo da doo da doo da da describes what jazz sounds like, you would be, one, incorrect, and two, you're never going to get anywhere. So that's kind of like a starting point for me when I'm listening to and rehearsing a jazz band. It's like, do they know what jazz sounds like? Okay, cool. Second is, do they have a sound as an ensemble? Does it sound like an ensemble, or does it sound like a bunch of sounds happening simultaneously? It needs to be cohesive. So how do we get them to be cohesive? They need to blend and ultimately balance, you know. If it's not in balance, it's mostly out of balance. And when it's out of balance, then it's mostly out of tune. So it's like all of these like concepts, they add up, you know. So if you come into a band and it sounds super out of tune, you know, a lot of the time it's really closer to in tune than maybe we want to think. Maybe it's out of tune, but like, especially if it's a, you know, college band or something and they have some sense of pitch, it's mostly out of balance, because we don't spend enough time with like more dissonant chords and tuning them, mostly because we don't have time, you know. But that's why I put out that giant drone course that I've been talking about for months. It's like, you have to go through every key, every note, and hear the tendency of that note on your instrument against every other note. There's 12 notes, so there's 11 notes, there's 12 notes versus 12 bass notes, right? You gotta practice them all, and they're different above the octave. So it's like, yes, there's one octave, but then when you do it in tenths, 11ths, 13ths, 14ths, 15ths, it sounds different. It's a different tuning experience. So I always have my students practice 2 octaves from the root note, so you can get all those extensions and tune them. And that's one way of expressing that intonation. And then the second way is like balancing it in a chord voicing. So feeling, blend, balance, sound, those are the most important things. You can fix rhythms and notes. Anybody can do that, you know. But how do you impart that into a group of students? I mean, you might be listening together, playing examples at them, getting them to sing, getting them to move. I often have the students get up out of the chairs, move around, and get that dance into the music. And you got to pick the right. You got to pick the right charts too. You got to make sure that the music is real music, and it's not dumbed down high school charts or whatever. It should be real stuff, man. And like, that's a problem that I see, is that they get out of the habit of playing easy charts that are good real music, and they get these kind of like nonsense charts, which makes it hard to sound good because the music doesn't sound, it's not written well. Anyway, I'm getting off of my high horse here. Okay, let's see. Drop the ball by not naming it Bonin in the Drone Zone. Maybe I did. Taylor, returning to something okay. Okay, he says, returning to something I asked a while back with a tune like Life Happens. It has a simple melody and a simple progression. When writing simple tunes, does that help you see from your perspective that simplicity means more than a melody that sounds too talkative? So I'm not sure I'm understanding this question. When writing simple tunes, does that help you see from your perspective that simplicity means more than a melody that sounds too talkative? Yeah, I don't think a melody that has too many notes is very memorable. Sometimes I kind of think of different tunes, like some tunes or some vibes, like I'm thinking of the vibe and the emotion of the tune, like some of that needs perpetual motion, like it needs a lot of action, and so that will have a lot of notes in the melody, right? Or if you've established that it's going to have kind of like a bebop tune feel, it needs to have a lot of notes. Not a lot of notes, but it needs to have lines. It needs to have activity, you know. With that particular tune, Life Happens, it was the beginning of me exploring inversions, chord inversions. And so I was writing a sequence of chord inversions, and that's what that vamp is on that tune. But the simple melody and complex harmony thing, more complex harmony, is something that goes back to the idea of simplicity. And when I said I try to make things slick that like you wouldn't notice unless you were really listening to it. So it's a simple chord progression that's repeating, but like if you look more deeply into it, you might discover that there's more there, you know. So there's multiple layers to it. But you know who did that was Wayne Shorter. Wayne is like the master of writing something simple melodically and complex harmonically, so it satisfies both sides of the equation. That's what I aspire to write like. If I could write anything that was as memorable as Wayne Shorter, I would be so glad. And I'm not trying to compare myself to him. I'm just saying that like that's the level where it's like, okay, there's this crazy, like interesting harmonic mixture, modal mixture, super beautiful melodies, and he does both at the same time. It's interesting from the musician's point of view. It's interesting from the listener's point of view. It's relatable, all of those things. Clay Abrams, will you sing something? No, I'm not a singer. Okay, Charles. Oh, Kevin had something to say. Some Sort of Humanity is a good jazz tune title. Maybe it is. Thanks for the suggestion. Charles. I'm a bassist, and this weekend I jammed some duo with a trombonist. Nice. The question of register popped into my mind. That's something I don't usually feel the need to consider playing with a trumpet. Any thoughts, e.g. how much I should get out of your way? Oh, from a bassist point of view, that's a good question. I think the trombonist has equal buy-in to that idea. They need to stay out of your way too and realize that, you know, they need to maybe play more in the upper register to stay out of your range. Yeah, I mean, it's a question of awareness, you know. I don't mind to play in the same register as the bassist. I just, you know, you just have to know that that's happening. So to me, if you're playing with me, Charles, you don't need to get out of my way. I'll get out of your way. I think I always suggest to my students that you got to listen more to everyone else than to yourself. So when you're listening to everyone else more, you'll notice what register they're in. If you're going up, maybe I'll go down. All these sort of different things. So I think it's both of your jobs. And so I had a duo gig for a long time with a bass player. We played at a restaurant. And so I would do different things to try to stay out of his way. I played with a cup mute or different mutes and all these kind of things to try to have different sonic options. Let me get some water here. Hang on a second. Different sonic options that help stay out of the way because that changes the tone a little bit. But it's not just the bass player's job. The trombonist also needs to know what register they're playing in, and it can be muddy with the bass. But yeah, we always joked that it was the bass clef duo. But I always like playing with bass, man. It's a really nice combination with trombone, I think. Just bass and trombone. Clay says he has a Con 6H. What do you think of that horn? I've played them, certainly. I don't have one. I have this 88H that's back here. Let me see if I can point at it. There we go. That's an 88H. Yeah, sorry, you can't see it on Instagram, but I think those old cons are nice horns. 6H is a little small. I like the 8H more personally, but that's just purely personal and the sound concept that I like and what I'm going for. So they can be kind of beat up sometimes because they're a little older. But for some reason, they weren't that popular or didn't stay in popularity, and they kind of phased them out, the con straight horns. So, I try to talk to them. I mean, obviously King and Con Summer was the sponsor for our day, and I work with them, and I'm an artist for them. I try to get them to do more of those things and bring them back, but there's just, I guess, not a ton of demand for those instruments at the moment. Yeah, there's nothing like the timbre of the trombone, especially a bunch of trombones together. I think it's my favorite instrument in a large group. That's for sure. Hey Elvis, how you doing, man? Hope you're doing good. What helps you to keep a positive mindset when things aren't going well for you? I don't know that I always do. I'll just, just being honest. I try to be positive, but I'm not all the time. I might outwardly be positive, but, things suck sometimes. And it's just kind of being okay with it. I'm working on more and more, like being able to let go of things, let go of expectations, let go of trying to control too many things that aren't really in my control, things that I thought were in my control that actually aren't in my control, stuff like that. But ultimately, especially, you can't not continue to move forward. Ultimately, this is kind of my mindset about it. It's like, no matter how good or bad it is, in that moment, it's going to pass. And you have to keep moving forward. And if you don't keep moving forward, then what are you going to do? You're not going to reach your goals. You're not going to get done what you're trying to get done, personally or professionally or whatever. So if you're in a bad spot, especially if you're in a bad spot, you got to keep moving, because to get out of that bad spot is not going to happen without a lot of effort. Whether it's a personal issue, whether it's a professional issue, whether it's playing music, trombone, career, whatever, you have to keep moving. Don't stop. Just keep working, keep moving, because if you wait, opportunities will pass you by. They just will, So just keep moving, man. You're a good trombone player, Elvis. Just keep it moving. Keep it moving. Demetrius. What's up, Demetrius? Looking for a small bore mouthpiece. Good ideas where to start. Well, 6.5 AL is a good place to start. You can start there. I have a whole box of mouthpieces from Marcinkiewicz right there. if you want to try some. So come find me. But especially for someone that doubles a lot, some people, there's two schools of thought on that. One school of thought is kind of like, if you're a doubler, to play a similar thing on all your like a similar rim on all of your mouthpieces. So that's one thing you could try, is finding a similar rim to play on a smaller cup and a smaller bore, because Demetrius plays bass trombone. Other people like it to be totally different, and so that it feels totally different, and that it's a different setup and all these kind of things. So it depends on what you like, but it's important to just kind of discover things. I like the Marcinkiewicz mouthpieces. Obviously, I play them and sponsor them. Anyway, but so you could try those out if you want. I like them because they're lightweight and they respond really fast. Is kind of the starting point. What do I think of Willie Colon and the trombone and salsa music? I love it. I think it's great. Willie Colon is a beast. He's a beast. I miss playing salsa gigs. Modal agility. Keep moving. Yeah, man. Keep moving. I like that. There you go. A sliding slide gathers no moss. Keep moving, man. Keep it going. All right, see, one more question here. Feel free to drop in maybe any last questions. I'm going to wrap it up for today. We're back here every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 Central. All right, so here's the last question. Probably the last question I'll answer for today. What was the most philosophical lesson you had when you were a student that helped you improve something that you were not super good at? Okay, so not super good at it in the beginning. Demetrius is responding here. I'm trying to play a 6.5, or maybe a bigger to fit. Yeah, probably want a bigger one because you're used to playing a bass trombone. Yeah, but you might want a bigger cup and also a wider than a 6.5 AL, you know. But the rim could be the same, you know, like the rim size. Alan Ferber's Urban Riot. I'll probably have heard that. I'll probably need to go back and listen to it again. I'm not sure of it offhand. Okay, so this question about a philosophical lesson that I learned when I was a student. The most important philosophical lesson that I learned as a student was probably that everything that you think it is not. What do I mean? I mean, like, every time you think, you don't really know what something is like. Like, every time you think, like, that person has achieved X because they did Y. If you do Y, it does not equal X. You know, like, it doesn't like mean anything. A lot of these like arbitrary things we make up. And what I just mean, like, oh, I thought, for example, I'll give you just the real example. Like, I thought, oh, let me go to Juilliard and like I'll be set up for life. Like, I'll have a check mark of like, yeah, you're great. And then you go off into the world, and you know what? It doesn't mean anything. You're still, yeah, I mean, it's a good thing for your resume and whatever, and some people will think it's cool that you went there, but like ultimately, it doesn't mean anything in terms of your artistry, in terms of your career. Like, you still have to go out there and like work, you know? You still got to get it together, and you still have to move forward, like we've been talking about. So that realization that things aren't really what they seem, you know, is important. Is and was. It still is. And it's like you said, Juilliard's still your dream. Yeah, sure. It's not. I'm just saying, like, that thing is not going to equal anything more than just that experience. There's plenty of people that don't get in that have great careers there. And I'm just using it as one example. That I honestly thought that it was going to be, go to this school, men, and it's like, this is the answer. So there's no simple answer. And it's like, and even you think about getting a great gig, you go and play the gig, it's like, it's not that much different than an okay gig in terms of all the whole thing. Like, the music is better, and it's great music, but like everything else is kind of the same. So it's like just weird. It's just a weird thing that it's like, oh, it's not what it seems. Like, this great gig is like, it's great, but then like, oh, well, you can't be a full-time musician playing only in like one person's big band, for example, unless it's the Jazz and Lincoln Center Orchestra or a military band. But if it's like somebody's big band, like I always wanted to play in Maria Schneider's band, is a good example. And like, that band is great, but it's not a full-time job. Like, it's not enough gigs. So it was like, anytime you would like, I would realize these things that I had made up in my mind that like, oh, if I get into this group, then that means X, Y, Z, and it's not really the case, you know? I don't know. So anyway, this is an ongoing philosophical battle within my own mind here. Did Chuckman Joni start a jazz education? No, Chuckman Joni did not start the program. He's from Rochester, though, and he did make appearances at Eastman, that's for sure. But he's from Rochester, where Eastman is. But I don't think he was. I don't know if he was a teacher there. Maybe he did at some point, like teach for a little while, but he wasn't one of the main teachers there. Why isn't trombone music more popular? I don't know. People just think it's not cool. I don't know. Is my brain fried yet? Not yet. I did 12 hours of this on Saturday. I'm doing fine. I decided against going to music school because I realized that the idea wasn't my own, but instead came from people around me. It's a mass psychosis around young musicians. To go to music school is psychosis? Oh man, maybe. You certainly don't need to, but if you want to focus in on it kind of exclusively, it is one way to do that. It's not the only way, and it's not necessarily the best way for everyone, but it is one way to focus on music and get experience playing in a lot of ensembles and things like that you might not be able to do on your own, but you might. Depends where you live, you know. If there's a lot of reading bands around, then you don't really need to. If you can get that experience in real life, you know, school is definitely separate from the real world, the real musical world. All right. Thank you. Wow, so many great questions today. Appreciate everybody coming by. We'll be back. I'll be back next week on Tuesday for another round of Q&A. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to get on to the next thing. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving this week, and we'll see you real soon.